Hi, everyone. You probably all are aware of the acronym RFID. May I briefly ask who is not? Okay, it's a few people, but she knows now. RFIDs, well, you have probably followed a few of the discussions and concerns in regards to RFID and the implications on privacy. Our speaker is from the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, and she works there with Andy Tannenbaum on certain implications with research, jamming, and privacy concerns. Melanie Reback, please welcome her.
All right. Can you all hear me? Great. So I'm going to talk about RFID today. I suppose there wouldn't be 3 talks at this conference in RFID if you all weren't relatively aware of what this was as an issue. Just as a funny aside, I'm here to talk to you today about RFID security and privacy, but I spent about 5 minutes yesterday in the queue waiting to pay 10 euros for one of these little Sputnik tracking devices. So sometimes we know better, but go figure. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about basically as a hacker, what can you do to interfere with RFID systems, but also more generically as a person and as a consumer, what can you do to protect yourself against the technology. So I'm going to give a really brief intro, not too long because all of you seem to know what RFID is. But just generically, for those who don't know, the most important message to kind of take away about what is RFID is it's exactly what it sounds like. RF, radio frequency, ID, identification. I mean, people have called it, like radio barcodes on steroids. That's sort of one way to kind of think about it. But they come in all kinds of shapes and forms. I mean, sometimes they look like these little stickers that you have here. You have active RFID devices like these well-designed Sputniks here. You have building access passes, which kind of look almost like credit card formats. But the main thing is they all use very similar technology. And essentially the way that it works is you have a reading device. It emits some kind of a radio field that then powers the tag, and then the tag uses that energy to actually send its signal back. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about the actual mechanics of how that works. But for now, that's pretty sufficient for what you need to know about the technology itself. But of course, what's really interesting about RFID is everything that it's used for. So, of course, for organizations with really huge supply chains like the Department of Defense in the US and Walmart, I mean, this is like, a dream come true. Because their hope is, if you have all these little objects and you need to keep track of them, and there's some kind of process, they can optimize this process and make massive return on investment. This is like, if you go to any of their conferences, this is what you keep hearing over and over and over from them. And, but they've really been pushing the technology. So, I believe they're using it for anti-counterfeiting. I think either it's the talk after me or the talk tomorrow, I believe, is going to be talking about the Euro World Cup tickets and perhaps whether you're able to break that or not. Additionally, they're using RFID for paying for things. Like, for example, I'm not sure what you have in Germany, but at least in the Netherlands, we have a system called the chipknip. It's basically you just have a pass, and it has this little contact smart card on it, and you use it for small payments. So if you purchase, for example, a soda from a vending machine, you can just put your little card in, and then offline it can actually do these transactions. Well, their idea is, why not make this contactless? So using either contactless cards or using things like mobile devices, for example, like cell phones. I mean, Philips is coming up with near-field communications technology. Also in Japan, this stuff is huge. I mean, Sony has this brand called Felica that they use. You can literally use a wristwatch. And you can just, purchase your candy bar from a machine, use your watch to pay for it. And their vision is, this is easy, this is fast, and this is just going to make everybody's lives easier and ultimately save the company's money as well. But why stop there? I mean, if you're tracking other objects, I mean, they want to use it for luggage tracking in airports, just to make sure. I mean, nobody wants to get their suitcase lost. So they figure, you can make lives better and easier with this. They want to track animals with it. For example, they've been taking these chips, they put them in your dogs, they put them in your cats, they put them in your ferrets. I actually saw a ferret get injected with one of these chips once, and for about like 10 seconds it made clucking noises like a chicken. And then 5 minutes later it was off chewing the carpet again. So actually the pet owner was more traumatized by the whole procedure. But the point is, if the ferret now gets lost, and somebody, perhaps the police or the local animal, the kennel or whatever, finds this ferret, they can now scan it, and assuming that you're using compatible standards, which you may or may not be, they can scan your ferret and then say, oh, this belongs to, whoever, and we can get, Fluffy back to his or her owner. So, they also want to use this for other kinds of animals, like with a cow here. You can see they're using RFID chips in the ears of cows. I mean, certainly in the last 5 years, we've had a lot of incidents with foot and mouth disease in animals. Of course, mad cow disease was a big one before that. The point is, if there's an infected animal, what they want to do is they want to track back to find out where the sick animal came from, figure out whether there are any other sick animals, and then perhaps, get rid of those animals, but just, for the greater good of all the animals that then are healthy. And then once again, hoping that none of this bad meat is also going to make its way to the consumer. So, but why stop there? Why stop at animals? There's all kinds of ways that you can use RFID also for doing useful things with people. So, there's this company. They actually make these little wristbands for babies, and they'll put these RFID wristbands on babies just to make sure that, if they get sort of, smuggled out of the hospital, that, maybe there's like some reader or something at the door that goes beep, 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 if you try to take the wrong baby out. And yeah, and they figure, this is just useful technology. And of course, the new passports, who can miss that? That's been such a source of controversy over the last 6 months to a year, for sure. And whether or not it's really going to make our borders safer, the point is they're here now. I'm sure some of you have been issued them already, also in the UK, in the Netherlands, in the United States. We tend to be the source of these things. And yeah, that's another anti-counterfeiting application, actually. But another way that you can apply RFID technology to people for trying to have all these desirable ends with the technology. So there's one other application of RFID technology, and this is absolutely my favorite. There's something called the VeriChip. Now, there's a club in Rotterdam. It's about 15 minutes from where my apartment is located. And they have something called the VIP chip. And what this is, it's like almost exactly the same kind of chip as they put in the ferrets. Actually, it was originally used in salmon. And what they do is they will actually inject this chip into your arm. So the first thing you do is when you go to this club, of course, first you have to sign the paperwork, the usual indemnity clauses. And then any GP can inject this thing into your arm. So once you actually have this chip in your arm, you're feeling good. And some of the benefits of having this chip at the Baja Beach Club is for 1,000 euros you can purchase one of these chips and you can get 1,500 euros worth of drink money. All right? But the point is, this gives you everything. Because, first of all, you have exclusive access to their VIP deck, the Princess Marmika deck. And they have these guys serving these drinks in sailor uniforms. So if you go for that, it's, this is totally a plus. And the way that it works is, once you have one of these chips, they take one of these readers, and as you can see, they will scan your arm. You have a number. You're a number now. And when you want to buy a drink now, the screen comes up, and that's essentially then how you pay for your drink. And I have to say, believe it or not, there is actually a waiting list for these things. I have spoken with the PR person from the Baja Beach Club, and there are a couple hundred people with these chips, but there's also a waiting list with another number of hundreds of people. Because this is so exclusive, and they actually want to limit the number of people that can get these VIP chips because their deck is only so big, you know? So, but then, of course, this leads to the inevitable question, what about security? Details. So, a journalist at one point had asked the CEO of Applied Digital, the company that makes these chips, so tell me, what about security? And his answer was, their implantable chips do not employ cryptography as of yet, but the system is nevertheless safe because its chips can only be read by the company's proprietary scanners. Yes. So, and this sort of brings me to a bit of a segue that I don't know if any of you all catch one of the speakers yesterday, Annalee Newitz, but her and another guy named Jonathan Westhuse did a presentation at Hope in New York, I think it was about 6 months ago, and they demonstrated something called the Verichip cloner. And yeah, that doesn't need any further explanation. So. Right, but that's not, the Verichips aren't the only chips that have security problems. These chips just generically face a number of security challenges, and the most obvious one is unauthorized tag reading. Now, generally, if you have cheap chips, not just like Verichips that don't have cryptography, but also like EPC, electronic product code tags, there's an organization called EPC Global. And they envision that they're going to have these tags like 5 cents, 10 cents. You could put one on every little thing of chewing gum. So that's why they need the cost to be so low. But the point is that with something that is so low, that is so cheap and so power limited, they can't always, security is always the first thing to go. So these tags cannot always control who can access their data and who cannot. Sometimes these tags will be able to kill themselves. These EPC tags in particular have something called a kill command, and this is password protected. But generally, though, things like sleep and wake modes and cryptography, this is sort of usually saved more exclusively for the expensive tags, which are useful for some applications, but not all of them. Eavesdropping, generally, there's about a 90 decibel difference between the strength of the signal coming from the reader and then the actual distance at which you can read the tag response. So the point is that if revealing information is given in the reader query, for example, when you're singulating the tags, trying to figure out if there's multiple tags present, which tags are actually out there, then you could actually get information about which tags are there from a larger distance away. Tracking. This is sort of the most obvious one. RFID is designed for tracking, but you want to have the consent of people. And certainly if we're dealing with tracking objects, people should be aware and people should be able to opt in about whether or not these objects are going to be tracked or not. Tag cloning, I already talked about this a little bit. If you have one of these Verichips and you have €1,000 worth of drink money on it, you certainly don't want someone else, making a clone of your tag, and then, now they can pay for their drinks with your money. So the point is, people have also cloned other RFID tags, like the ExxonMobil SpeedPass was sort of a notorious case of a tag that was cloned. There's actually pretty big financial incentives for why people would want to do this. Car immobilization systems is sort of another big one that's obvious. And as soon as they start using RFID tags in currency, and yes, there were rumors about that about a year ago, and then the European Central Bank quieted down. Well, let me tell you, they haven't dropped it. I know for sure that there are still people that are still working on these mu chips. And believe it or not, another kind of interesting tidbit is they're actually working on making tags that you cannot destroy by putting into the microwave. Really, seriously, microwave-proof tags. So this is the cat and mouse game that's coming up.